everyone, welcome to Crank It Up Podcast, the YouTube home of Brigand Games. I'm Jim Price, designer of Erudia Battle of Birthrights, and today I want to show you a completely different type of video, a story through art. Art direction is a really important part of a game system that tends to focus largely on its own mechanics. As a game system that starts with 12 classes and has many more, it's important to have a consistent art direction for both the system itself and individual classes, and I wanted to talk about that through the lens of the ninja class. The ninjas are one of the 4 primaries that will be released in the first expansion, which I call the A expansion because the name starts with A and hasn't been revealed yet, although the inclusion of the ninjas directly relates to the name in a way that doesn't make sense now, but will make sense later. The focal point of this video is a question I asked on a recent Spoiler Sunday session on our Discord. If you aren't in the Erudia Discord, I highly suggest that you join in the link in the description because there is a ton of information there, including spoilers, so that you can see just how much effort gets put into a game system like this. I showed this image and asked, looking at this image, how many things can you tell me about the card it represents? There were some great answers, even though the total conclusions were not drawn, but for the purposes of art direction, it's really important that these conclusions are drawn because it helps convey the idea that art is inherently tied to the mechanics to the best extent possible. If you haven't seen this image before, I'll give you a few moments to pause this video and try the exercise yourself, because I'll be talking about this image extensively. Note that to fully draw all conclusions, you do need a bit of knowledge that was revealed in the previous Spoiler Sundays, but you'll still be able to follow along on most of them without it. The first thing we can tell, if you couldn't guess based on what the title of the video is that it is a ninja card. In fact, given the level of detail on the card and the atypical stance of the character, we can assume that it is an action, not a unit, which is correct. But someone correctly took it one step further, noticing the magical nature of the illustration because of the lightning, and assumed it was a spell, which is correct, and that may surprise you, since ninjas aren't typically known for being magical beings. However, and this is really crazy, the conclusion was taken one step further to inadvertently figure out the card's actual name, ninjutsu, which is a reference to the special kind of ninja magic in Final Fantasy. So yes, looking at this image, we can conclude that the ninjas have some level of magical spells, which is really intriguing because it makes you wonder why that is and what type of spells they would be. Working on the ninja art direction was an interesting challenge because you want every class to have its own style that fits into the greater direction of the game system. With every class, we try our best to show diverse representation, but for ninjas, what does this mean specifically? For us, it started with being sure to show diversity among multiple subcultures to give each ninja acolyte a distinct background. What I really enjoy about the ninja acolytes is their secret hidden Easter egg. While I honor a lot of RPGs in this game system, this class honors a ninja game I played as a kid on a system I didn't even own, but it nevertheless made a strong impression on me. Shinobi 2: The Silent Fury for Game Gear. In that game, you had 5 playable ninjas, each with a distinct color and weapon, which are reflected in the acolytes. And speaking of acolytes, it's always important to pick the right acolyte for an action to make narrative sense why that unit is featured for that card. For example, when you see the cards, it will make perfect sense that Nagato is chosen for his action and Hanzo is chosen for her action. Now, when you look at all acolytes at once, you may be asking a fair question. Who is that in the original photo? It certainly doesn't look like the color of any of the acolytes, because it's not. You may be thinking, is this a secret 6th acolyte? But in actuality, it's more likely to conclude that this is the ninja leader, Tissa. And from that fact, we can gain quite a bit of information about ninjutsu. First and foremost, we know it must be in the primary only, because it's unlikely that a secondary card would feature the leader who's not in the secondary. Additionally, if a leader is going to be on the card, it probably means that this is the class payoff card, a card that ties the strategy together and requires a lot of input to get a lot of output. And this is absolutely true about ninjutsu, as it leads to something epic. It also heavily implies that the card only appears once, because such a payoff card would be dangerous appearing more than that. But what exactly does ninjutsu do? It turns out that we can get a clue by examining the image further. You may notice some symbols in the background, and if you do, you may be wondering what they mean. The left and right symbols are fully visible, and they happen to be the symbols for fire and wind. The symbol in the center would then seem to be another element, and it is water. That just so happens to be the three elements featured on some of the ninja items that are in the class. In fact, if you look closely on the respective items, you can see the symbols themselves. So why water, fire, and air? Why not earth? Well, the answer to that is actually a massive spoiler to what the ninjas do, while it's also a massive Easter egg in its own right. But by examining the symbols, we can start to think, whatever ninjutsu does, it has something to do with these cards. Someone had asked if these items were in the ninja primary, which is a fair question considering the fact that ninjutsu is likely to only be in the ninja primary. If you've been following along, it seems that we learned a ton about ninjas just by looking at their art and putting the pieces together. But there's a little more I want to say about the ninja art direction because it's not apparent and it's something I really enjoyed giving to them. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to assume that, given that these are ninjas, and I've gone on record saying cloaking is my favorite mechanic, ninjas are going to have cloaking. It's not all they do, but it's a big part of it. And when you compare the ninja primary units with their acolytes, you will see that the differences are night and day. Literally. The acolytes are all designed with unique colors, and their settings all take place in the daytime. The primary units are specifically designed to look alike, and here's why. The rules specifically say that you cannot look at a cloak card unless you are its controller, and it's easy to forget what was actually cloaked. It might be easier if you remembered what the card looked like. Well, it's a lot harder when the cards all intentionally look the same. You can tell them apart in your hand, but it's much harder if you aren't looking at all three at the same time. In fact, there is a narrative story in the art where the Genin, Jonin, and Shinobi are all advancing along the same path toward the same destination, coordinated by Tissa at that destination. So why not do the same obfuscation for the acolytes? Well, not only do I want acolytes to look like real characters as opposed to generic ones like the lower ranks typically do, but mechanically speaking, it doesn't make sense to cloak any of the acolytes. You can cloak them because cloaking is great, but it's not like these units get specific benefits to being cloaked. So if those cards are going to be face up, you want to emphasize their uniqueness. This is a mechanical fact that is reinforced by the art direction for the class, and I truly hope it increases your inevitable appreciation for the ninjas when you see their abilities and you see how much attention to detail is paid to their respective illustrations. I've shown quite a bit of the art, but not all of it, so there are still some surprises to be found. But I truly think that the ninjas tell quite the story with their art, and you can learn a lot just by looking at it. True to form, there are still 2 Easter eggs to be found in the art that I've shown in this video that I haven't mentioned yet. One of them I'll leave for you to guess by yourself, while the other is that we've seen this artist before in another class. Can you figure out which one? If you can answer this or any of the other Easter eggs, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let's shut it down.